the they that are looking at you and thinking, well, we can certainly use someone with an image like hers for us. And that's not all cynical, by the way. Who are the people who are making those decisions as far as you're concerned? If we go back, say, well, when you were asked to serve as vice chairman, who is making those decisions?
Well, I mean, obviously Nancy Pelosi is one of them. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the head of the DNC at the time. There were people in the Obama administration. There are people who were not elected officials, and within the DNC, I'm sure there were probably political donors as well who had a part of that. But we'll start with Nancy Pelosi. I had won my primary election here in Hawaii in August of 2012. And that in Hawaii is a very strong Democratic state. That was essentially the election. I did have a Republican opponent and still had to go and win the general election, but it was a safe assumption that I was going to, I had de facto already won the election. And within a few weeks of winning that election, I had gotten a call from Nancy Pelosi saying, would you like to come and speak during prime time at the Democratic National Convention that was going to happen shortly after that? This was in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2012. Someone who had not even yet been elected to Congress for the first time being invited to speak on prime time. It was. I was surprised. I was very surprised. The topic she was asking me to talk about is one that is obviously near and dear to my heart, to talk about veterans. And so I said, yes, of course, I will do that. I went there and I spoke and I did interviews with just about every media channel that was out there. But all of these different things, there were not opportunities that were given to the vast majority of people. I guess I'll put it that way. But my decision to leave as vice chair of the DNC was one of those pivotal moments where, in the lead up to making that decision, it was driven by a couple of things. One was the recognition of the rules of the DNC is that you're as an officer of the DNC, you are not involved in tilting the scales or getting involved in Democratic primaries, especially Democratic presidential primaries, that you have different candidates, they go out, they make their case, and then the party coalesces around whoever the winner of that primary is. Well, in the lead up to that 2016 primary election, I started to see very quickly that the decisions that were being made, not in consultation with us as vice chairs of the DNC, but unilaterally by Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who was the chair, who was very close with Hillary Clinton, were made to give an advantage to Hillary Clinton. For example, limiting the number of debates where she would have to face Bernie Sanders, putting them at times where, I think there was one that was scheduled during like the Super Bowl or something like that, when nobody was going to be watching or paying attention to a presidential debate. There were newly implemented rules that said any Democratic presidential candidate that participates in a debate that is not sanctioned by the DNC will be banned from participating in any future DNC debate. And for me, I'm just thinking, like, if our purpose and our cause is to increase involvement and engagement in our democracy, to get more people to pay attention, to learn more about these different candidates, to actually have a real dialogue about these important issues, why would you be punishing someone for going out and trying to engage in doing exactly that? Why would you be trying to limit the debate that the American people can be exposed to and involved with? And it was very clear why those decisions were made, to give an advantage to Hillary Clinton, who was designated as the one that the Democratic Party powers that be wanted to win that election. And so their lack of integrity, coupled with the fact that Hillary Clinton wanted to be our commander-in-chief. I still serve in the Army Reserves now for almost 20 years. So for me, as someone serving in the reserves at the time, as well as a member of Congress, as well as an American, to have her in a position where both Democrats and the mainstream media refused to challenge her on her record, both as a senator and in every position she had held, previous Secretary of State and so forth previously, on her, she is the queen of war hawks. She is the queen of warmongers. No one challenged her. They just said, well, she's got all these positions. She's the most qualified. I and so many of my brothers and sisters in uniform were like, hold on a second. You need to ask her and hold her to account for the disastrous consequences, for the decisions that she has made, the wars that she has advocated for, the things that she has done that has not only undermined our national security, but come at great cost to the men and women who volunteer to serve this country.
Why do you think, okay, two questions on the Hillary front. I mean, one of the reasons she terrified me I suppose, is that it was pretty damn obvious that she's been aiming at the presidency for 50 years.
Sure.
And that's a long time, right? And you got to ask yourself, what is driving someone who's that committed to that goal? And the goal is clearly the presidency. It's not what could be done with the presidency. And it's not like she was dragged in kicking and screaming by people who were overwhelmingly impressed by her prowess and who, enjoined upon her for moral reasons to consider a career in government. It's like, no. She's been laser focused on being the first female president of the United States for God only knows how long. And so that's concerning to me. But then that doesn't answer the next or address the next mystery, which is, well, given that she's a Democrat and given that the Democrats should in principle be somewhat skeptical, let's say, of fascist collusion between corporation and government and a little bit skeptical on the military industrial side, why do you think that her record indicates that she's such a hawk on the military front? Is that a compensation? Is she attempting this is a cheap, psychological interpretation, could easily be wrong. Is she trying to look tough on the foreign policy front to mitigate against any criticism of the fact that she might not be capable of that? Or what's going on? Why is she doing that?
I don't think that's such a cheap analysis or assumption to make, because that is a reality, and that is one of my fears, not only about her, but also about some others who have been in those types of position. You look at someone like Kamala Harris, for example. She's a breath away from the presidency. I have lost track of how many American service members I have spoken with who are absolutely terrified about the prospect of a President Harris